Welcome back to Andy Cooks, the show of me, Andy, professional chef of 20 years, brings you along on my home cooking journey. And today we're talking about chicken a la king. So why chicken a la king? Well, this is a dish my Nana used to make. And I have really fond memories of it. It's pretty simple. It's basically chicken and white wine and cream dish. And she always served it over white rice, but you can also do it over fettuccine or some kind of pasta as well. And it kind of reminds me of like beef stroganoff, but a chicken version. So this recipe came around in like the 1880s, and there's a bit of argument over where it was invented. There's a restaurant in New York that claims it, the Claridge's Hotel in London claims it, but it is really common in England, and my grandmother was English, so I guess that's where that's come from. Traditionally it's cooked with sherry, but it's pretty commonly done with white wine now as well. If you are going to use white wine, you want a sweetish white wine, you don't want a dry one. But let's look at the rest of the ingredients. So what you're going to need. So unsurprisingly, we're going to need chicken. So I've got 500 grams here of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, just cut into thin strips like that. But I like the chicken thighs because I like the fattiness, it gives you a bit of flavour. And then on the veg side of things, you're going to need a brown onion, sliced nice and thin. A red capsicum, sliced nice and thin. We've got 250 grams of button mushrooms. I prefer Swiss browns, but there wasn't any at the shops when I went to get some. About a cup of frozen peas. I didn't realise until I started posting videos on the internet that there's still a whole bunch of people that don't like frozen peas. Like, seriously, peas are so sweet and delicious. But anyway, besides the point, if you don't like peas, just leave these out. Also, if it's like the height of asparagus season, I really like doing this dish with just some sliced up asparagus in there right at the end as well. It's also super delicious. Some double cream, some chicken stock, butter and flour to make a roux and thicken our sauce, and just a little bit of garlic. You don't want too much garlic. Some parsley to finish. And of course you're going to need some cooked white rice or pasta to serve it on. But let's get stuck in. Alright, so in a fry pan, over a high heat, we're just going to seal the chicken off. Get a bit of olive oil in there and let that heat up. So once you got your oil hot, chicken in, season it with salt. And it's probably easy to do it in batches so you get good colour. Alright, once it's got good colour, I'm going to remove it from the pan and set it aside. But leave the pan on the heat, because next we're going to cook our mushrooms. So all that chicken fat that's rendered out, we're going to use to cook the mushrooms. So in the mushrooms go. And season as well. Remember, season all the way through. And you'll see these mushrooms will just absorb all that fat pretty much instantly. So just going to cook these halfway through. We're just going to get a little bit of colour on them. Once they've got some colour, we can put them on the plate with the chicken, and then we'll start cooking the sauce. Then alright, you see we've got some nice browning happening. I'm going to pull those out and put them on the same plate as the chicken and set them aside for now. And the pan back on the heat. A little bit more oil. And we're going to start to sweat down the onions. So in go our onions. I'm just going to cook these until they're translucent, and then we'll add the capsicum or the red pepper to it. No, you're not imagining it. This pan has changed. I realised the pan I have is too small, so I've got a big one. Anyway. Onions are kind of half wilted down. Now we're going to add the capsicum. And I'm just going to sweat these down a little bit also. So now the capsicums have sweated down slightly. We're going to add our garlic going to use a garlic crusher. These things are awesome. If you don't have one, get one. And then we'll remove these and we'll start making our sauce. So 3 cloves of garlic in with the garlic crusher. By all means, if you don't have the garlic crusher, you can just use a knife. We don't want to cook the garlic out too much, because there's not a great deal of it there, but you just want to get a little bit of heat penetrated through it and the garlic well dispersed amongst the rest of the veg. Alright, so now the garlic's been in there for a couple of minutes, we're just going to deglaze that pan with our wine or sherry. And then we're going to reduce that right down till it's almost evaporated completely. Once that's reduced down, we're going to put that to the side, and then we're going to start making our white creamy sauce. Now, it might seem like a bit of a fluff to do all the things separately and then kind of bring it all back together, but it does end up in a much nicer result. And if you kind of can do it all in one go, but the risk that you have is that you end up with a lumpy sauce. No one likes lumpy sauce, do they? Alright, you can see the wine has almost completely evaporated. So you want to catch it before it all completely goes, but you know, and that's just because you don't want it to catch on the bottom. But all that's doing by evaporating is just intensifying the flavour, so that means you can still control how thick or viscous your sauce is at the end. So I'm happy with that, and this kind of also varies that I'm about to put it on a plate, so if you had a bowl you could probably let it, you know, leave it a little bit wetter if you wanted to, but I don't want to use any more dishes than I have to, so out that goes onto the plate and pan back on over the heat. So into that pan, I'm going to put our butter. I'm going to melt that down, then we're going to make a roux by adding flour to that butter. So now that butter's all pretty much melted, in goes our flour. And we'll cook that out. You want to make sure you cook your flour out before you add anything else, just so it doesn't taste like flour. So now you can start adding the stock, and you want to make sure your stock is hot. It doesn't need to be, sorry, it doesn't need to be boiling hot, but you don't want it to be cold. So I've just put this in the microwave for about a minute, and that will help it incorporate without too many lumps. So add a little bit of time, stir it in. And I like to use a whisk in here. Now, someone's definitely going to come in the comments and say, oh, you shouldn't be using a metal whisk on the non-stick pan. But I, like many cooks, have been doing it my whole life, and I'm still here. The reason you use a whisk is that you're going to get the lumps out far easier than with just a wooden spoon. Alright, so now we've whisked that so it's relatively smooth, we can start adding our stuff back in. So there goes our onions and reduced wine, peppers. Get that incorporated. The chicken and the mushrooms and all the beautiful juices that have come off those in there as well. And goes the frozen peas, they won't take long. Like I was saying, nice new season asparagus, and this is deluxe as well. And then we're just going to finish it with our cream. Now by all means, you can probably just leave this like this. Now that's not traditionally how it's done. Chicken a la king is very much a creamy dish, but if you're kind of worried about all the extra fat, you can probably half the amount of cream as well if you wanted to. So I'm using 200 mils here. Now we're going to bring that to a boil. We're going to check the seasoning. Salt should be fine because we've been seasoning all the way through. But we'll need a bit of pepper. Some chiffonade parsley. So chiffonade just means very finely sliced parsley. And we're laughing. Needs just a touch more salt. Beautiful. Here comes the parsley. Turn the heat off at this point. Just gently fold that through. And a hot tip, if you've got leftovers of this, also makes an excellent pie filling, especially for a pot pie. There you go, 2 meals in one. Make a big batch, cook some with rice, the next day shove in a dish, put some pastry over the top. Delicious. Serving it couldn't be easier. So my Nana always serves this on white rice. On some white rice. Make a well in the centre for all that saucy goodness. The star of the show. Then a little bit more parsley just to finish. And there you go. Nanna Peggy's Chicken King. So good. You know, it's not like a super complicated dish. It's just delicious, comforting, and more important for me, it makes me think of my Nana. Thanks for watching, legends. Chuck this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not, and we'll see you next week for another recipe. Peace.